Hi, this is part 4 of our series, The Middle, Is This Where You Want to Be?, where we review benchmark data standards and discussion of psychology of being in the middle. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's do this. So this is our 4th part of the series. Our final one is tomorrow. It's on the psychology of being in the middle and asking, is this where you want to be? And all while we are considering this, we're looking at standards and benchmark data. So one of the areas that I wanted to review as well is the 10 major causes for low productivity, because one of the arguments for aiming above the middle and being extraordinary is productivity. The more extraordinary your people, the more extraordinary your business, the more extraordinary your culture, the more productive that company and talent is likely to be. So why don't we look at the causes for low productivity? And there are 10 listed here, but I found that you can really put a lot of these into 5 categories. The first one is lack of skill, which is, training, education, and information for the most part. And that was also number 4 here. So I would combine those two to be one and the same, because the root cause for lack of skill kind of comes from the same root issue. And then you've got lack of cooperation among employees. So this really comes down to the relationship between the employer and the employee, which is number 5. So again, you could really just combine those two. If you have a strong relationship with your employees, which is all based off of trust and truth and transparency. If you have all those things, then you're going to have a fabulous relationship with your employees. Lack of technology. So this includes, technology isn't just the computer, it's processes, it's consistency, it's technology. A piece of paper and a pen is even a type of technology, right? So this could encompass so many different things. It's really the way you do your business. And if all of those processes and procedures are consistent across the board, and everybody is using those in the same way and communicating, you're going to be a lot more productive as an organization. Okay. Lack of commitment. Again, this can also be tied to your relationship as well as the technologies. And if you have a lack of commitment, you may want to look at transparency, accountability, consequences, rewards, and appreciation. So if an employee isn't feeling appreciated, they may not be committed to the organization. If the employer is not feeling appreciated by the employee, they're not going to be committed to the employee. It goes a two-way street. Physical condition and conditions, lack of favorable environment and condition, and then lack of employee condition. Lack of concentration, I would put that in there as well. Those 3 can kind of be lumped together. If the environment, if the culture is not favorable for productivity and trust, accountability, reward, and appreciation, and trust, not going to be productive. Physical condition, if it's a dilapidated building and unsafe and people are getting sick from the contaminants in the air, obviously that's a no-brainer as well. If an employee is not feeling well, I would include mental health. These are physical conditions. If the employee doesn't feel good, they're not going to be productive. We know this. So talking about just reviewing, choosing the middle, we as humans have heuristic tendencies where we take shortcuts and oftentimes choose the middle without intentionally taking the time to think about why we're choosing the middle. And organizations that may be seeking to be extraordinary have chosen middle options without even realizing it. Choosing the middle is very common. Oftentimes, sales representatives show the most expensive option, the least expensive option, and then one in the middle. And traditionally, people will choose the option in the middle without having it align with their goals and values for their organization. So knowing this and being aware of it, we can then move forward and choose the best option based off of our goals and our values for our business, and making sure that we're providing the best options to meet those goals and retain the top talent that and reduce turnover. So there's the 1, 2, 3 many saying. So there's 1, 2, 3 options. If there's more than 3, we group it in as many. There's a lot of options. Having more than 3 options has been shown to produce overwhelm, confusion, and lack of understanding, a feeling of lack of understanding from the employees. We need to be cognizant of this and compassionate and understand that insurance is confusing for employees that only look at it once a year. It's confusing for most employers also. So we need to be compassionate and be available for any education that is needed throughout this process. Simplifying the process and options leads to happier employees and administrators, including HR. So we want to keep our HR staff happy. If they understand the process and it's simplified, there's going to be less errors. There's going to be less overwhelm. These are the people that are interacting with your employees. You want to make sure that you're taking care of them as well. Creating stickiness with our employees. So I did touch on this prior, but we just need to keep in mind, yes, we focus on stickiness with our customers and our clients. We also need to focus on stickiness with our employees. We want to build that relationship, right? Because lack of productivity, reduced productivity comes from a deteriorated relationship between the employee and the employer. What if we focused on stickiness with our employees as well as our customers? If we had sticky employees, wouldn't we have sticky customers? You know, those employees are creating wonderful relationships with our customers, and that will then create more stickiness with our customers. So it's a nice snowball effect, positive snowball effect. What would less turnover do for your business? So imagining your business with lower turnover. Yes, some of these, you know, adding this and adding that, it can get very overwhelming cost-wise, but envisioning it as an investment in your culture and in your talent and recruiting top talent will reduce pitfalls later and improve the business model in a long-term way because you're reducing turnover and also creating a happier, more loyal workforce that is more productive. So 63% recognize the need to prioritize employee well-being and enhancing the employee experience. Approximately 8 in 10 organizations, 79%, report that they have not yet arrived at their new workplace reality. And about 40% don't expect to reach this milestone until 2022 and beyond. This suggests that these organizations expect more changes in the employee experience in the future. Even once organizations reach the transformative employee experience stage, which is the most productive and the most engaged employee experience that they can reach with increased profitabilities, it is critical for them to maintain a sustained focus. So just like anything else in life, if you've worked on time management at all, or if you've worked on yourself in any sort of way, let's compare it to fitness. So if you are working on your body and dieting and trying to build a muscular frame, if you stop lifting weights, you're going to lose your muscle eventually. If you go back to eating pizza every day, you're going to lose your weight loss that you had achieved. So these are concepts that we constantly need to work on. Now, it gets easier over time because we build habits and a mindset around it, and it's something that we enjoy eventually working towards. But it's not as though these organizations that are successful at this become these high performing companies and then all of a sudden stop working on it and ignore it, and it's no longer an initiative. It's constantly, the employee experience is constantly at the forefront, and it's something that's evolving and worked on year over year, and it's part of their business strategy. Adapting to new reality will take time and require a sharp focus on these three areas. Work. Over 8 in 10 organizations, 82%, recognize that new realities in labor markets require a hybrid model for many roles, but they're often not ready to realize that ambition. Well-being. 6 in 10 organizations, or 63%, acknowledge the need to prioritize employee well-being in order to enhance the employee experience. This would involve improving existing offerings or changing other aspects of their well-being programs. Total rewards. Over half, 54%, report increased momentum to align total rewards program with the diverse needs of different talent groups. In 3 years, employers expect, 1 in 4, expect employees to be working a mix of on-site and remotely. This is in addition to the 19% who will primarily be working remote. Forbes article. So again, this is some anecdotal information. However, when we are looking to get above the middle, we can't really look at benchmarks. So it would be like a athlete, a prime athlete, pulling lab work and comparing their blood analysis to the benchmark from the lab. You have to consider what the benchmark from the lab encompasses. So what normal is. They're comparing the athlete to the normal range of the American public. So oftentimes the athlete is outside of the range on some things because they are not normal, right? So in those cases, you do have to pull back and look at different demographics and maybe even some anecdotal information like we're going to do here. So I'm going to move this camera because that is bugging me. Though there were some surprises, so this is looking at America's best employers in 2022, trends and what makes a top employer. Though there were some surprises, Huntington Ignal Industry made one of the most significant moves of any company on this large list, rising from number 387 last year to number 11, thanks in part to increased brand recognition. Much of the ranking is a reflection of the state of the workforce. The restaurant industry, for example, fell the most, with 11 companies earning spots in 2022, down from 29 in 2021, as pandemic restrictions and labor shortages persisted. In-N-Out Burger, for example, which ranked number 23 on the large list, was the only one to crack the top 200, as its owner and president, Lindsay Schneider, told Forbes in November of 2022, the company has moved ahead with business as usual during the pandemic. We bend over backwards to try to do as many things behind the scene to continue business as usual, Schneider said. It's obviously not looked like business as usual with masks and nearly empty dining rooms. Bucking the trend where institutions of education, it's been well documented that teachers have experienced high rates of burnout during the pandemic. 52% of K through 12 public school educators reported feeling burnt out or fatigued during COVID-19. According to September survey by Mission Square Research, despite this, education was the most represented industry on America's best employers, with institutions such as the California Institute of Technology making up 8% of the mid-size lists, and those like Yale and the University of Michigan making up 7% of the large. Healthcare companies provided a surprise too. They dominated the ranking of large employers, making up roughly a quarter of the top 50 and half of the top 10. But it was the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia that claimed number one, jumping 39 spots year over year. Respondents to Statista's survey were impressed with the organization's handling of the coronavirus crisis, as well as its reputation. The pandemic, of course, has taken a tremendous toll on healthcare workers since February 2020. 18% of the US healthcare workers have quit their jobs due to burnout, poor pay, while another 12% have been laid off, according to an October Morning Consultant survey. And Madeline Bell, the president and CEO of CHOP, tells Forbes that her workforce hasn't been immune. Burnout, she says, is a top concern of employees, and the hospital has introduced a variety of programs to address that. Despite all of this, many of the hospital workers who responded to Statista's survey said performing purposeful work fulfilled them. Over at Robert Half, which ranked number 193 on the large employers ranking, McDonald said that sentiment is aligned with that he's seeing in the job market. People are reevaluating how they want to look at their careers and how they want to look at what they are doing for a living. And it has caused many people to say, what's important for me, and is my career fulfilling? And this is the anecdote that I wanted to look at. So that's a preface of what the article was about, that they had this top 200 list, a top list of employers, and they niched out some examples from this company, Genentech. A biotech giant, Genentech, has long been hailed as a great place to work. In the mid-2000s, magazine profiles highlighted its informal, free-willing culture and mission-driven science, but emphasized its campus's perks: made-to-order sushi, on-site daycare, and regular Friday evening parties known as ho-hos. Its C-suite leaders dressed up for Halloween each year, once piling into an SUV and running into a rival drug maker Amgen's lobby for a photo before the security showed up. That's just a wonderful image. It makes me laugh. But in a pandemic, such perks or antics aren't as accessible. Currently, about 5,500 of the 13,000 employees at Genentech, number 12 on the Forbes list of America's best largest employers, work on site in an average week. While there have been some on-campus events, such as outdoor viewings of March Madness games, and now as virtual office hours with executives, injecting fun with opening credits of spoof TV shows, executives still dress up for Halloween, but the costume reveal is virtual. CEO Alexander Hardy showed up as Ted Lasso with a believed Zoom background. But in some ways, says Chief People and Culture Officer Cynthia Burks, the pandemic has helped Genentech reinforce its culture. It's prompted them to institute protected time or blocked calendars between 12 and 2 p.m., giving employees time for breaks to focus on heads down work. The company has mandated a number of in-office days for workers whose jobs don't require them to be on site, letting teams develop their own agreements. And the monthly office hours that replaced twice a year in-person town halls let workers not based at its South San Francisco headquarters ask executives more questions and see more stories about patients and researchers. The pandemic has really allowed us to think about experiences of people who are not tied to the main campus, Burke says. Culture doesn't live in one place, it lives in our values. As we reach the second anniversary of the pandemic, many office workers remain remote. Many companies are wrestling with the squishy idea of corporate culture, of what it really means when an office is no longer center stage. The definition of culture that consultants like to repeat, how things get done around here, gets even harder to grow when the here is no longer a place most people go every day. For many employers, says Gartner Vice President Brian Kropp, one of the big concerns about hybrid work has been how they will manage different cultures that arise as the team, rather than the office, becomes even more central. Are they in conflict with each other? Do you act one way online and another in an office? That's a huge fear for them. Also, more important, says Burchell, it's finding ways to prevent burnout and maintain flexibility rather than add fancy on-site perks. What people are looking for is actually not a ping pong table and meals, he says. What has shifted is the attention to, are employees exhausted? Do they feel overworked, and do they feel valued? Indeed, one frequent theme Forbes heard when speaking with companies on the list was giving teams the ability to decide which days they want to work on site. And number 22, General Mills, about 80% of the corporate employees are working a hybrid schedule where certain days or hours aren't mandated, but decided by individual teams and reviewed every 3 months. While it varies dramatically, and an average is about 2 times a week, says CHRO Jacqueline Williams rule, noting that doesn't necessarily mean 2 full days. I think flexible is table stakes. I think flexibility is table stakes. At number 2, Southern Company, where nearly half of its 28,000 employees work in the field or in the plant, working from home for the rest of its corporate employees used to be seen as a benefit for folks who were strong performers or who had situations that merit it, said the Human Resources Senior Vice President Sloan Drake. Now it's a legitimate work practice. So we're seeing these work practices that were once seen as perks become standard. As we all know, working from home, I believe, will be permanent from here on out. I believe the Zoom culture will continue. And helping employees adjust to structure in a workplace where they are at home with perhaps some new distractions, maybe not additional distractions, but new distractions, and helping them convert their homes into a work environment will be imperative for these companies and cultures. So there are some additional follow-ups here that I would like to note and like to show you that I am keeping an eye on, and that I will be informing you as soon as they become available. So this is from March of 2021. I've reached out to Unum for the update. And I want to know when this particular study tracking of data will be out in 2022. Unum COVID-19 leave requests and short-term disability claims as a percentage of total. So we've got COVID-19 related and non-COVID-19 related. The COVID-19 related is in orange, and the non-COVID is in blue. And you can see it's on a wave, and the trend seems to be, in general, being more non-COVID than COVID, these peaks and valleys here, right? It's kind of got this peak here, and it looks like the trend would then, dip down here and then hopefully trail off. But we'll see. It's only speculation. Unum COVID-19 leave requests and short-term disability claims. So leave requests have also dropped, and short-term disability claims have also dropped. So those are some things I'm keeping an eye on. And please subscribe to the channel if you're interested in keeping up on any of that type of information. I've got links down below if you want a copy of any of the reports I reviewed today or you have any questions for me. I would love to hear from you. I certainly enjoyed hanging out with you today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.